As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a Half-Life mapper. I remember when I was a kid and I joined a public server on the map Killbox. It was obvious to me back then that this map wasn't made by Valve. It was made by just some guy. In fact, a lot of my favorite maps were just made by some guy. And I figured, well, if people out there can just make custom maps, well, why can't I? I think I was around age 12 the first time I tried to use Hammer Editor to make a map. I booted it up, and I couldn't figure out how to configure all of the game assets, so I just gave up after that. I figured it was just too complicated for me to learn how to use. Throughout the years, I would struggle to learn Hammer on and off with various different games, but eventually I kinda got the hang of it, and I made some really terrible maps that I never ended up finishing. When I was 16, me and my brothers were playing Half-Life Deathmatch on LAN pretty often. Eventually, we realized that Opposing Force was basically Half-Life Deathmatch, but with more weapons, so we just played that instead. My favorite weapon in Opposing Force is the barnacle gun. It's basically just a grappling hook, but it can't grapple onto any surface. The surface has to be a certain texture in order to use the barnacle gun. And in the base game, there's really not a lot of maps that utilize this feature to the extent that I would have liked. I mean, there's some maps like Meanie and Zendance, but I feel like these maps just weren't designed to use the barnacle gun to its fullest potential. So, when I was 16, I decided to solve this problem. I started working on a map specifically designed for the barnacle gun, a map where almost every surface could be grappled onto. This map had many different iterations throughout development. It started off kind of like a Killbox clone, but when me and my brothers would playtest it, we decided we wanted more from it. Every time we would play together, we'd all discuss our thoughts on the current state of the map and what we thought should be added or removed. At one point, I did have a bunch of different early versions of this map all backed up, but unfortunately, a lot of these old files have just been lost to time. Eventually, I ended up developing version 0.65 of Weenbob. It wasn't quite complete, but it was pretty close. There were a few bugs left to fix, some optimization needed to be done, but really the only main thing left to do to this map was to work on the weapon and item placement. But that never happened. We just kinda got bored of playing Half-Life, and I never had any interest in finishing the map. Even if I wanted to finish the map, it's not like anyone played Opposing Force multiplayer anyways. It was just a dead game, so if I ever did finish the map, it's likely that nobody would have ever played it. Years went by. I had almost completely forgotten about this map until August 9th, 2023. Over 5 years later, I was scrolling through Twitter and I saw this.
All right, dirtbag, listen up. This is your drill instructor, and I got a mission for you. On August 13th at 3 p.m. GMT, you'd better be ready to play Half-Life Opposing Force on Steam. The mission is to break the all-time peak of the game on that specific date. Now move it, knucklehead. August 13th at 3 p.m. GMT. I am not kidding you.
On the 13th, everyone was going to be playing Opposing Force. I immediately knew what I had to do. I had just 3 days to finish this map and release it in time for the event. As soon as I saw that video, I looked through my hard drive to see if I still had the map, and after some digging around, I found it. There it was. After years of collecting digital dust, it was still on my hard drive. The map was a lot more finished than I had remembered, but there was still a lot of work that had to be done. So all I had to do was load up the map in Hammer and get to work. But there was a problem. It turns out, 16-year-old me didn't back up his files well enough. I still had the compiled BSP file, but I didn't have the uncompiled RMF file. You can't just load a BSP file into Hammer. You need that RMF file. So the only way I would be able to edit this map was to use a decompiler. Decompiling a Half-Life map is not as easy as it sounds. When you decompile a BSP, a lot of the map geometry gets messed up in the process. Here's what the map looked like after I decompiled it. With working 10-hour shifts and only having 3 days left before the event, I knew I would have enough time to fix the map and release it, but fixing a decompiled version? My hope was dwindling, but I still wanted to try anyways. As soon as I got home from work, I immediately started working on the map. I had already decompiled it the day before, so now I just had to focus on getting it to a playable state. This meant removing all of the weird geometry that was created by the decompiler, all of this while trying to relearn how to use Hammer because I hadn't used it in years. This took me several hours, but I eventually got rid of all of the decompilation artifacts. Some parts of the map were so broken that I just had to remove certain areas of the map so I could rebuild it later. So the map was a little barren at this stage, but it was playable. One of the things that got really messed up from the decompilation was the bouncy pads. The complex geometry and the multi-manager entity did not survive being decompiled. Now, I remember it being really hard to set this all up when I was a teenager, but now I can't remember anything about how I built these bouncy pads in the first place. I tried looking up some tutorials, but I still couldn't figure it out, and with it being crunch time, I didn't even want to try to figure it out. So I managed to find this GitHub page where this guy was posting rebuilt RMF files for every single Half-Life 1 map. This takes some serious dedication to decompile and fix all of these maps in the game and share the RMF files online. And I'm really glad he's doing this because this meant I could just download an RMF file for a map that already has the bouncy pad and then just copy and paste it into my map. Yeah, it's kind of a cheap way of doing it, but it worked. After fixing the bouncy pads, I spent the rest of the day rebuilding the teleporters and platforms in the center of the map. The only thing I had left to do now was to work on spawn locations, weapon placements, and optimization. And back when I was a teenager, there weren't really a lot of tutorials for Half-Life 1 mapping.
If you tamper with any of the files or move them or anything from the original place they were saved, then your map will fuck up forever. So don't ever do that. Okay, what else can also fuck you up is
But more recently, there has been this incredible tutorial series put out by Dimbeak.
You know, why do that? You know, what do you think I am, made of time and money? And, you know, you think I have sex with lots of women? Because I don't. I don't have sex with women. God.
If you want to learn how to make maps for Half-Life, this is your guy. Honestly, I don't think I would have been able to optimize my map at all if it weren't for his tutorial, so I have to give a huge thanks to Dimbeak for making his tutorial series. And after a few more finishing touches, I was almost ready to finish this map in time for the event. But then I encountered a new problem. When I was testing the map, I found that sometimes when I would walk through this doorway, I would randomly die. And for some reason, it would teleport me to this teleport destination entity upon death. So I looked in the console and it said I was dying from trigger hurt. This made zero sense. There is no trigger entity in the map right here. So what was causing me to die? I must have spent hours trying to figure this out. Looking through the map to find any weird entities that might be causing it, and trying to search online to see if anyone else had encountered anything like this, but nothing. I could not find what was causing this to happen, and the event was the next day. This is a hammer glitch that, as far as I can tell, has never been documented online. I had no idea what was happening or how to fix it, and time was running out. My best theory as to what was happening was that somehow, when I decompiled the map, it created some sort of corrupted entity that can be seen by the compiler, but not the editor. I knew some weird stuff could happen when you decompile a map, but I have never heard of this kind of metaphysical anomaly. And if I can't see it in the editor, how would I even fix this? I can't delete what isn't there. So then I thought maybe I could open up the map file's raw code and try to delete the entity that way, but yeah, I don't know how to decipher any of this, and there was no way I was gonna learn how to do that in one day. I was starting to feel kind of hopeless about fixing this bug, but then I had one last idea. If I can't delete the anomaly, what if I took the whole map and pushed it somewhere else? So I tried it. I hit Control A and I just moved the entire map away from the anomaly. And when I tried to compile the map, it didn't compile all the way. It threw an error, an entity leak error. It detected an entity outside of the map, even though in the editor, there clearly is no entity here, which is precisely what I wanted it to do. Now all I had to do was isolate exactly where this invisible entity was and create a small box around it. This was a little tricky to do because the hammer point file doesn't tell you exactly where the entity leak starts at. But with a little trial and error, I managed to pinpoint it down to this little room. I actually included a way to get to this room through a teleporter in a secret room. I'm not going to reveal how to get to the secret room because then it wouldn't really be a secret, but I thought adding this as a reachable part of the map was a pretty cool Easter egg. For some reason, this corrupted entity still teleports the dead player back to this teleport destination entity. I still don't know why this happens, but whatever. And with that last fix being made, I was finally ready to reveal this map to the world. When I woke up, I immediately started a server with DM Weenbob. I kept waiting for people to join, but for a while, nobody did. I think everyone just wanted to play on the Lambda Generation servers instead, since they were the ones hosting this event. But after a while, there were a few people who did join the server. Before this, I had never finished or released a map before, so this was pretty cool just seeing other people playing on my map. Unfortunately, Half-Life servers were a bit buggy at this point in time. The server would randomly fail to validate with the Steam servers and then the server would just crash. This happened several times throughout that day, and this is a bug that wouldn't get fixed until after the 25th anniversary update. But still, even with all the crashes, I still had a lot of fun playing my map with other people. At one point, I even had 8 people on the server playing my map, which was a lot of fun. Although there weren't as many people playing it as I had hoped for, I'm still really happy that some people got to enjoy my map. After the event was over, I put my map up on Game Banana and ModDB, and a few people have even downloaded it. Overall, I'm really happy with how this map turned out. I've made a few other maps for other games, but I've always been too lazy or bored to finish or release them. So I'm just really happy that I managed to finish a map and release it, and now I have officially fulfilled my childhood dream of calling myself a Half-Life mapper. And even if nobody will ever play it again, there were still a few people who did, and that's pretty cool. Thanks for watching.